My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave Dubow. And, if you've ever wondered how to conquer the corporate world by day and build a real estate empire by night, my guest today, Chase Canova, has cracked the code. From creative financing to turning fire-damaged properties into gold mines, he's got the blueprint. Welcome to the showcase, Chase. I'm excited to dive in.
Hey, thanks, Bryce. Really appreciate you having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, no problem. That's it's always my pleasure. So a couple of interesting things we're going to touch on in the episode, like the fire damage properties and a couple of things. But the main question that everyone always has, they're standing around a networking event, it usually has something to do with a Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. How'd you get started? How'd you cut your teeth in the business? What was your first entry into this Wild West?
Yeah, that's a good question. I appreciate you asking it. So, as a young investor, a young real estate investor now, I'm 25.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of follows the trend throughout my life. I really got into entrepreneurship really young.
Yeah.
Started my first business detailing cars at 12. And before that, I, broke my Boy Scout Troops record selling popcorn, hitting all the high-end neighborhoods in the town where I grew up. So I feel like that's kind of where I got my start with the entrepreneurial bug. And then did things here and there throughout middle school, high school, and college. Left college in the middle of COVID in 2020. Left James Madison University, where I went. Very, very
Mm-hmm.
proud alum and proud Duke. And started my corporate job. And at the time, I was an area sales manager for one of the big automakers. And I had that job. I knew it was the best job I had, and in all intents and purposes, it was a great job. But there's still something missing. I can only just call it a good job. I couldn't really wholeheartedly say I felt like I had a great job.
Mm-hmm.
And the way society is, it checked all those boxes for meeting the criteria of a good job or a great job. But for me, something was missing. So I said, you know what? I've had all these side hustles my whole life, all these different things. So you know what? I've always been interested in real estate, and I've always had limiting beliefs holding me back. So I think it's finally time as an adult with a college degree and with a corporate job that, like I said, is the best job I found, is the best option I had, but I still felt like something was missing. I said, let's try this real estate thing.
Mm-hmm.
So first year in the business, I was, first few months was just cold calling after work, 2 hours a day after work, just cold calling and trying to, reach driving for dollars leads after skip tracing them. So I'd either drive for dollars or I'd cold call and, leave voicemails, send texts and all that. Just make sure if I couldn't reach them, they still had a way to get back to me and knew the reason for my call. And after several months of doing that, I got my first deal under contract, which was really exciting. And then, Bryce, it was law of the first deal from there on out. I was pick up the check for the first deal, and I get an email. The next seller wants to sell, and we have a contract ready to go. And then it just kept going from there. So first year was wholesaling. You mentioned that fire damage property, which we might get into. Bought that last month of that first year in the business just because it didn't meet the typical wholesaling box.
Yeah, they don't really love fire damage stuff. It's like a red flag,
yeah.
But there's money to be made there.
There sure is. Yeah. So picked that up and then started just building the portfolio from there.
So the portfolio, your primary strategy, as you mentioned before the show, was or is rather buy and hold, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
so
correct.
what market are you primarily invested in these days?
So throughout Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
I'm located in Williamsburg, Virginia. It's a 757 area. It's the Virginia Peninsula, Tidewater, Hampton Roads area. It's all the same. It's just different names for the same place. My portfolio spans from South Side, so Norfolk, Virginia Beach area,
Mm-hmm.
all the way out to about Richmond.
Right.
So that down that whole I-64 corridor and places in between. and then some more rural areas as well, over the water in the Northern Neck, more so down near the North Carolina border, but everything's in Virginia.
So what do you like most about the buy and hold game?
Just, at first I resisted it. That first year in the business, I was wholesaling. I thought, man, I think the key to the buy and hold game is understanding the strategy and the financing behind it.
Hmm.
There's so much more to it than just knowing, oh, I'm going to make X amount per month renting out a property. It's, when I say strategy and financing, of course, a lot of your listeners know the BRRRR strategy
Hmm.
and how you can have a huge liquidity event after you renovate that property that's not taxable income, that still allows you to keep that property with no money in the deal, and essentially have your tenant pay that monthly mortgage payment and tax
Hmm.
payment, insurance payment each month. So that's kind of what it is for me. I resisted buying and holding at first because I always heard about the what is it, the three T's: tenants, toilets, and termites. And I said, you
Yeah.
know what, I don't think I'm very interested in any of those things. But and I figure I'd much rather have a $10,000 check for a month of work than renovating a place just to make $1,000 or $2,000 a month. So
Yeah.
what I learned and what I love about it, though, is it took me a little while to learn. Kind of look a level deeper as an investor and see the value of getting paid more than once. So, if it's a BRRRR deal, I get that big liquidity event up front. I still got that monthly income and the tax depreciation of ownership, and then the ultimate sale of that property if or when I sell it. That's what I love about the buy and hold strategy, is the ability to build up consistent income that I can count on, and also all the many different ways to make money throughout the process.
Yeah, there's a bunch of profit centers, and it's almost like
Yeah.
a forced high interest savings account because if you get any sort of appreciation, maybe you get none, but the pay down is almost a type of appreciation. So, there's lots of profit centers in buy and hold, and that's why you see people, all wealth is either made or held in real estate. And that's one of the big ways that people hold it, is just, getting other people to go to work to pay those mortgages. So we talked about the good stuff. What maybe isn't so great about it?
About the buy and hold strategy.
Yeah, and just to be about being in that business. Like there's the obvious one. I mean, the termites thing isn't a big thing in my market, but definitely in the southern United States, that's a big thing. Termite damage, termite
Yeah.
inspections, they're chewing up your houses.
Yeah. Um, well, first thing, just a quick thing off of that, a termite inspection, can be a great, when you're under contract on a property, can be a great ROI before you even buy the property. Just getting that,
Hmm.
spending the $100 for the inspection, get a report back. I feel like termites might even be the first of those three T's for a lot of people. And that's a great way to save on your acquisition of a property, just by that $100 inspection. Hey, we found all this work that needs to be done, if it does indeed truly need to be done. But some of the other bad things about the ownership, it's you're gonna spend time on the properties.
Hmm.
You're gonna be spending time, or having your management team spend time. Um, I have a manager. I'm fortunate enough to have a manager that helps me with the maintenance, but I'm still the one kind of orchestrating, where he goes and what he does, and when he goes to one property versus another, and just kind of helping him manage just the schedule. But so that's definitely one thing, is just the continued, each property does become a little bit of a job. It does. It's
Hmm.
it's not completely passive. Some are for a while until they're not. Um,
Yeah,
and then
until
of
they're not. I
course,
like that. Some
yeah,
are for a while until they're not.
until they're not. Every property is passive until it's not. And some
Yeah.
days it's every other day that it's not passive, but every other day it is passive. But of course, the other thing is the defaults. If you have an occupant default, it's never good. And
How are
you
the
know,
tenancy rules in your favor or against your favor out there?
they're in our favor. And yeah, I would say that they're fair, but probably a little bit more in the landlord's favor. Um, Virginia had been a blue state. Now it's a red state, governor wise, but the Landlord Tenant Act really didn't change much. Um, it's pretty standard. It's thankfully we're not like the Connecticut's or Washington's or New York's of the world, but
Mm-hmm.
um, it's typically, a 7 day, or I'm sorry, it's now a 5 day pay or quit. It was a little different during COVID though. It's a 5 day pay or
Mm-hmm.
quit. It's, then 3 weeks out, you got your court date, and then they've got 10 days to appeal. If they don't appeal, you get your date with the sheriff. You come out and you get the locks changed. And they've
Yeah,
got
so
after that.
relatively short order to get the
Yeah.
defaulted tenant out of there. So apart
Yep.
from that, have there been any major challenges you've had to overcome in your real estate journey so far?
Definitely. There's definitely been challenges. First one I'll say, it's probably a little bit more vague. People ask me how I build a portfolio quickly, especially when I had a W-2 job. And I mean, I just
Mm-hmm.
say it, like I said earlier, every property is passive until it's not. It does become a way of life. You're constantly searching for deals. You're constant, you might get, typically I don't have tenants call me late at night, thankfully, but I do
Mm-hmm.
get texts to the tenant line and everything that sometimes you might need to address someone at least over text. I would say though the biggest challenges, I mean, there's the classic ones, right? Like finding a good hard money lender or private money lender, um, learning how to comp properties. Um, Another one that's been a challenge, it usually works out, is a seller signing a contract then deciding not to sell to you. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, if I decide not to buy your property after signing a contract, I would be held to a standard. So
Yeah.
I let my seller have the same privilege. I treat them to the same standard, is how I'll put it. We've had probably 2 or 3 times now had to get lawyers involved just to pursue a transaction to the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
They change their mind or they want more
yeah,
money or
exactly.
you have to, yeah, you do have to like pursue them to the same extent because you definitely know that if you were defaulting on buying that they would be exercising their rights within the contract as well.
You're exactly right, and that's why I say I allow them the same privilege they allow me.
Mm. So when it comes to real estate, what do you think your secret sauce is? What comes easily to you that maybe some other people find difficult to do?
Um, I've allowed it become a little bit of a way of life. It's for me, it's a hobby, and I enjoy it. But I don't want to say that like it's not a business. It is a business. It's just a
Hmm.
business I enjoy that doubles as a hobby. So I think for me, the secret sauce has been I'm just always looking for different opportunities, um, looking for opportunities, and looking for ways where I can help. Sometimes certain sellers, certain property owners, they have just a certain situation that needs handled, needs conquered. And I
Yeah.
like to let the deal and the property owner kind of speak to me. And then from there, I'll figure out highest and best use of the property, whether it's a quick cash deal, fix and flip, or a wholesale, or a more creative seller finance deal, or a mortgage takeover with a subject to transaction. It just all depends. So I say all that because I think that might be my secret sauce, as I'm not a one size fits all type of strategy investor. Uh, I let the deal speak to me. I let the owner speak to me, and I'll figure out from there the best use of the property and the best way to kind of make everyone happy in the transaction.
Yeah, I mean, there's a guy out of Ontario, Ryan Carr. He's got a book called The Highest and Best Use Playbook, and I think you guys would really hit it off. You should check it out. Uh,
Yeah, thanks.
so where do you want to go in the next 12 months? What are you aspiring to do with the real estate business over into 2024?
So that's a great question. I've been looking more so into multifamily deals. Picked up my first very small multifamily property just a couple months ago,
Yeah.
here in 2023. So um, looking into larger multifamily deals. There's a team I've been talking to that does hotel to apartment conversions,
Oh
and
yeah.
I might put together some of the a little bit of the risk capital that they have to put up while they're doing their entitlements process before they get their deal closed. So I'm looking at doing risk capital. And for anyone listening, a good question you always want to ask an operator if you are doing risk capital, which is probably one of the lesser talked about ways to invest in multifamily or
Hmm.
conversions, is how much of that bucket is truly risk capital and how much of it is refundable EMD. It's a helpful
Hmm.
thing to always know. And for me, in this scenario, it's about a 90-10. 90 is refundable EMD, about 10% is at risk. So
And this is
that's
for them to like instantiate the deal and maybe deposits and things like that, like risk capital on the front at the acquisition side.
exactly. In this case, they've got about a 6 month period to get all their entitlements and zoning changes with the municipality of which the property is located. And that all costs real money. So they
Mm-hmm.
raise that just like they raise from limited partners, preferred return money and everything like that to raise the equity of the purchase. So um, getting into some more of these larger deals and just having another side to my portfolio, just another tool on the Swiss Army knife, so to speak. But also, a lot of mentors and good friends of mine in the business always say this: focus on what you're good at. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's for the next year. I don't want to sound like it's status quo because in many ways it won't be, but in the way that it will be status quo, is I'm going to be doing the same thing I've been doing, just hopefully at a higher level. I've got a maintenance guy now. That's a recent development in my business. So a 1099 paid maintenance worker who can help me with those tasks at the properties and service calls. So then, hey, there's one thing. I still have maintenance calls every year,
Mm-hmm.
like I will have in the past. Now that's one area where I'm able to pull myself from that part of the business, or at least 80% of pull myself from about 80% of
Yeah, buy your
that.
time back.
Exactly. So it's the same stuff. It's burrs, it's wholesales, it's buying with seller financing, it's selling with seller financing, or renting places out traditionally or on rent to own type of a contract, but just at a higher volume and with more just the mind is more business focused now, especially now that I don't have the W-2 anymore. I can really just fully focus in and stay focused.
Yeah, you've got the time. So, with all you've accomplished so far in real estate, what would you say your biggest obstacle would be now?
It's yeah, probably that, just focusing in and staying focused, because when you've got a W-2 job, this is no secret to any of the listeners, you've got someone, for better or worse, kind of looking over your shoulder at all times to make sure you're accountable. And I joke with my friends. I joke that I'm retired now at 25 years old because I left the
Mm-hmm.
corporate world. Um, and the actuality is, some Wednesdays or Tuesdays or whatever weekday of the week, I choose to be retired. But then there's Sundays where I look at stuff. I go, man, I got an abbreviated week because of my quote retirement schedule that I got to work on Sunday, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
good. But sometimes it has to get done. So it's just staying focused and holding myself accountable. And
That's
um,
probably one of the hardest parts is,
yeah,
I was having this conversation the other day with another investor and they were going on about like, oh, I can start whenever I want. And it's like, yes. So
right,
when are you going to do it? Because no one is going to be there to say, hey, you're 5 minutes late. That's you. And so that inner cycle is probably one of the most difficult things for people when they leave that W-2, is like they're used to having a schedule and someone above them saying, hey, you're not at work yet, or why aren't you here, or why didn't you do your thing? And so then that becomes you. And can you be disciplined enough to be your own boss in that cycle where you take the worker hat off, you put the manager hat on, and you yell at yourself, then you take that off, you put the worker hat back on. It's like a
yeah,
charades or a puppet show, because you really do have to be both the boss and the executioner. And if you're not bossing yourself around, you might take too many retired days in a week.
yeah. No, you're exactly right. But then again, that's where the balance comes in, right? Because that's also kind of why we do this, right? If we want to
Well, you're
take,
the self-motivated individual. Some people need
yeah,
an accountability partner or a coach or mentor. And then as soon as they're done with their mentorship, they kind of fall off. They fall back into their natural
mhm,
state of being without someone, checking on them every week, or, expecting things from them every week. They
yeah,
fall back into that category. But a guy like you who's been, going to the rich area town and selling popcorn, like no one told you to do that. You did that and you
right,
executed it. And no one was like, hey, you need to sell more popcorn. You're like, no, I need to sell more popcorn. So that's really a big shift that you see with a lot of, especially young entrepreneurs such as yourself, is that I remember my mentor used to say there's like a 1 to 3% of the population that are self-actualized in that way. where they don't need to be told what to do. They are the ones that excel when given the information on how to do things, but they never need to be told to do things. So it looks like you're probably in that category for sure. So when you look at your scale the next 12 months, what are you going to do to fund this expansion? Because with expansion means expansion of all things: management, deal flow, people and contractors, and ultimately capital. So how do you plan to fund this expansion?
Yeah. Well, and first off, thanks for what you just said. I appreciate that. But yeah, so for funding this expansion, um, I had a lunch meeting today with a fellow investor. He focuses in duplexes, investing in duplexes, and
Mm-hmm.
I told him this season of my life I am being conservatively aggressive. A
Mm-hmm.
little bit of a oxymoron there, but it's really probably the best way of saying it. I am being aggressive and I'm buying, but I'm making sure that it's in a conservative way that's safe for the business. So,
Mm-hmm.
to answer your question, it needs to be a good mix of both active and passive income opportunities that I'm pursuing. And if that active income opportunity is a bird deal where I'm able to refinance and have a big liquidity event, not just breaking even and having no money in the deal, but really having a big liquidity event in lieu of flipping that property, then to me that's almost the same thing as a fix and flip. And once rates go down, hopefully that property is cash flowing more than break even.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then if that's a big liquidity event, let's say $50,000 in a refinance, then I've got, depends on the deals, I've got anywhere between 1 and 5 or 10 down payments for properties, just depending on the
Mm-hmm.
size of those deals. And those seller finance deals, especially in this market, or sub two deals,
Mm-hmm.
those are the ones that really need to be bringing in that passive income where I can
Yeah,
kind of
because those
just,
things are,
yeah,
it's like I was saying on another episode. The banks better straighten up, or we're all going to figure out that we don't need them so much anymore. Because when you can go directly to the sellers and start getting financing, and people such as ourselves become more equipped to have that conversation and to actually set those deals up,
yeah,
um, the investing partners and capital partners, and like money not deployed is losing money. So when we're out there buying on seller finance and sub two, yeah, there's a mortgage in place, but they're not getting the instantiation fees, they're not getting the new mortgage fees. We're literally just taking over servicing an existing debt. And um, yeah, if they don't start straightening up those interest rates, we're just going to keep getting better at not using them. So as
right.
far as capital, like what's one of your strategies that you use right now to get access to money to fund your deals?
So definitely my personal network.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So networking I do in local real estate RIA meetings, or different clubs. They're not all called. If any listeners are looking for local RIAs, they're not all called RIA or Real Estate Investor Associations. So, but just
Yeah, they might
local.
be like property managers meetup or
Yeah.
entrepreneurs meetup. They go on a bunch of different names. And I like using meetup.com. What is it that you're going about to expand your network and get into new rooms?
Meetups great. Facebook groups I found,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
Facebook groups and Facebook events have been good as well. And then once you're there, that's kind of your ticket to the rest of them, right? You're meeting people, you're talking to them. It's always just good to ask, oh, what are some other meetups you're going to lately, or what are some events you're going to? And I love, more than I love um, these conferences I travel to, I love the local conferences.
Mm-hmm.
Small rooms of 200 to 300 people, bigger than a RIA meeting, but much smaller than a conference that you fly
Yeah, it might
into
be three or
Vegas.
5,000 people. Yeah.
Yeah, I love those local conferences. Those are probably not probably, those are better than even the RIA meetings for networking. But until you find your first RIA meeting, you're probably not going to know about the local conferences or the other RIA meetings or the landlord
Mm-hmm.
lunch that meets, every Tuesday, whatever it is. Um, but it's the networking that's been key for me. And, I do tell people, Bryce, you asked earlier, it's kind of, real estate's become a bit of a way of life. I think any self-employed person, no matter their industry or vertical, will agree with that. So, I always tell people, if they ask me, oh, how'd you do it with having a W-2 job, and how'd you build this portfolio, and how'd you break out of the W-2 world? I already say it's going to be a little bit of a way of life. You got to be willing to take that on. So that's also, where I'm finding some funding sources. I tell people, hey, if you've got a small amount that you just want to get involved and you don't want to deal with those 3 T's we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere between $10,000 to $30,000 is typically the sweet spot I need in my business for funding down payments.
Yeah,
And
definitely. It doesn't take much. I mean, what's your average purchase price out there?
I would say probably 150 is a good number.
Yeah. And is that still need work, or is that relatively turnkey, like paint it up maybe and put someone in there?
Um, Depends on the neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
depends on the ARV, but typically at 150, um, you're probably putting, and some of them are certainly still under 100,000 too. I did some recent projects at under 100,000. I'm probably putting 10 to 20 into that and having a good bird deal.
Yeah,
Um,
cleaning up the flooring and the paint a little bit, maybe maintenance in the kitchen, something,
exactly.
maybe a new toilet, and it's ready to go.
Yeah, kind of fixing up those touch points, switches, faucets, fixtures, things like that. But 10 to 20 is a good number for rehab costs. But yeah, if you're at that lower end for acquisition price, a $60,000 rehab is not uncommon.
Yeah, because it's either you buy it done or you do it yourself. So, uh,
Right.
touching back on the networking, what have you found to be most effective to keep touch with investor prospects and people you meet at these events?
Definitely making sure not only do you exchange business cards, but you actually get each other's numbers in your phones.
Yeah.
Because if you just rely on someone or yourself to put that number into your phone manually later once you get home,
Mm-hmm.
most often you're not going to do it. You're going to forget. It's going to get put onto the to-do list with a million other things. So I would just make sure we exchange actually on our phones, exchange contact info, and I'll just send a text, hey, Chase Canova, and I'll have them do the same thing, send me their name back. Um, and if someone says anything interesting, I'll follow up with them typically that same week. I'll say, hey, you were talking about this. Um, do you have a sec? I want to talk to you a little bit more about that, or had a few questions, or especially if they're wholesalers, I'll follow up as well in that way. And then it's just staying in touch. I like to friend people on Facebook and follow
Mm-hmm.
them on Instagram.
Yeah.
Those are probably my two biggest social media channels. So I like to stay in touch that way, just so even when we're not one to one reaching out, we're still seeing each other and
Yeah.
being
Watching
reminded.
each other's feeds, as it said.
Exactly. Yep.
So as far as deal finding, let's switch gears for a second. Are you find the deal and then get the money, or do you prefer to have the capital lined up and then go looking for deals?
I'm laughing because it's sometimes pretty stressful. I am definitely a find the deal then get the money person.
That is the more stressful way to do it. I mean, my mentor is always saying, the money follows the deal. And so I've always been a deal first guy, but in the buy and hold and the burr method, and a lot of times you can have the capital kind of ready to deploy, maybe not all of it, but enough to get you in the game. So,
Mhm.
um, are you, as far as like your acquisitions go, are you mostly still doing the cold calling, or have you pivoted to like the private side yet?
A little bit of both. I still do my own targeted cold calling, and I make sure I delineate that it's pretty targeted cold calling when I'm doing it.
Hmm.
Um, might be a certain house I've seen, a pre foreclosure. A personal just philosophy is I always, beyond just the cold calling, I always talk to neighbors when I'm at a property. Always. If I'm at
Hmm.
a property, I see somebody, I talk to them. Because they,
That's a
they
good
know
tip.
better than we do what's going on in that neighborhood and who's selling and
Find the
who's not.
nosy neighbor, the person who comes out to see why you're standing around with the clipboard with the book in hand. They're like, what is that
Exactly.
guy doing? Walk over, talk
Exactly.
to them. What's the story with this thing?
Yeah. Because you're not the only person they've been nosy with. And that's the exact person you want to know. So, um, I do my own cold calling. I do direct mail, and I'm doing Google AdWords pay per click as well.
Nice. Yeah. Those have been, those seem to be coming up time and time again. Is that for a while it was kind of a loss leader to be in the pay-per-click game, but it seems that those algorithms and people are becoming more comfortable putting their information into those things and actually being like, yeah, I'll get a number from Chase here. I'll submit it and see what he
Mm-hmm.
thinks my property is worth to him. So um, on the money side, when you present your deal to a possible investor, someone you met at that networking event, or maybe someone you met from another type of like a landlord lunch or whatever, how do you go about doing that presentation?
Um, I'm I'm a big fan of just kind of keeping things casual, and that's maybe why I only lasted about 2.5 years in corporate America. But
Mm.
um, I don't want to, you know, send a handwritten invitation and tell someone to meet me at this date and time for their own special deal presentation. Like,
Yeah.
it's just it puts too much into it. And not to say that other investors do that, but I just like to make an example of how casual I like to keep things. It's just a phone call. Let's shoot the breeze for a few minutes. If I call them up after a meetup and the next day or something, I'll just say, hey, got this deal last night at the meetup. You talked about this. So I thought you might be interested in it. And hey, if you're not, no big deal. But just wanted to share it with you.
Hmm.
A mentor of mine actually likes to use the term, particularly for syndication deals. When he's raising capital for syndications, he likes to share with someone the deal, and he'll reach out and say, "Hey, let's set up a time. Let's set up a call. Um, I really want your opinion on this deal."
That's a good tip. If you're listening at home, that's a great way of framing it because it's not going to put someone on their heels.
Right, right, and it caters to the ego a little bit. It's, hey, I respect you. You're a smart person. I want your opinion on this.
Yeah, I do that when I'm calling realtors too on the cold call. Is I'll never bring my opinion to the phone call, and I'll let them. I find that realtors that have deals are of a particular type, and they love to express their opinions, and if you give them the space
Mhm.
to do so, they might even get to showing off a little bit, and showing off to them means like, look at all the other stuff I got, and then it's like now you're into the pocket listing. So
Yeah,
definitely that's a great strategy for like, because you already know it's a good deal. You bring it to the table and you're like, what do you think of this deal? And it's like in your
yeah,
head you're like, I already did the numbers, I know this is a good deal. So it's like kind of like a setup in a way that they're going to look at it and make their own opinion of it, instead of you having to tell them, oh, this is a great deal, you should look at it. It's like, well, that's your opinion, right? And
right.
in sales, like when you're telling, you're selling, and when you're listening, you're actually able to build some opinions. So on that point, for people to invest significant amounts of money and capital into businesses and real estate investments, they typically need to know you, like you, and trust you. So what are you doing for that in your business right now to kind of build up those different categories to you know present yourself that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. Building a personal brand first off, and that's probably the newest thing for me. I
Hmm.
left my corporate job 4 or 5 months ago or so, 6 months ago. So um, that's definitely one that I wasn't working on because I was just quietly
Cog in the
investing on the
machine,
side.
right? You're the
Yeah,
gear in the box.
exactly. And I did not want to draw attention to myself in that way. Now I am the investor. I'm the CEO, the investor, the acquisition manager. I'm pretty much all hats. So I'm building a brand around that, and I'm working on creating as much content as I can about what a
Hmm.
day in life looks like, what I'm doing. I'll talk about different aspects of deals. I'll shoot some short videos when I'm at properties. So first and foremost, building a brand, putting that on Facebook, Instagram, etc. Um, and then secondarily, for getting people to know, like, and trust me, I'm all about people being paid what their time is worth. And
Hmm.
I'm a long term mindset person. So with that being said, I've reached out to friends before, especially when I would be traveling for work trips and stuff. I'd say, hey, I got to get an offer in today on this deal. It's right up the street from you. Can you please go look at it? And a lot of people might just stop there. Can you please go look at? Hey, can you please go look at? Let me give you $100 for your time.
Mm-hmm.
I'll Venmo it to you because I know your time's valuable. I know you don't want to drop what you're doing today, but I need your help. Things like that, and then vice versa. Always offering to do things for other people, and if they're not
Mm-hmm.
offering to pay, I'm good with it. If I've got a friend an hour away and I'm in a market half an hour from me, so an hour and a half from him, I'll gladly go check out the contractor's work and do photos and videos so he can inspect before a draw or something. I'll do that completely for free because I'm in the area. It's not far from me, and it helps people know that we're all kind of working. We're all kind of rowing the boat in the same direction. It's all teamwork in a way.
The real
So
estate karma, right? You put it in and hopefully you get it back out.
yeah, it's a great way of saying it. Real estate karma.
Yeah, you do bad deals, it comes to get you too. So it swings both ways, guys listening at home, it's the real estate network that you're in is not as big as you think it is. So,
No,
as good as a positive interaction and helping a guy out, a negative interaction, that word travels just as fast and maybe even faster within the local network. So if you're a wholesaler out there, if you're a flipper out there, anyone handling private capital, doing deals, you know, you can't really get away with it in the age of social media anymore. People connect to the Facebook groups and you don't pay a contractor or whatever, and they're going to go on the local trades and contractors and connect with the other guys and be like, oh, it's so and so. And then all of a sudden, so just make sure you keep your real estate karma clean. So if speaking of networking and things like that, if people want to find out more, they want to connect with you, they want to invest with you, what should they do? How do they find you?
yeah. So on Facebook, just my name, Chase Canova. And then on Instagram, my handle is the number 2_Chase. So either of those ways are good. Yeah, mainly Facebook and Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn a little bit also, Chase Canova on there.
Yeah, posting some blogs, I imagine, on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
So
some
yeah, I
longer form.
mean, very interesting. I love to hear that there's still like a cash flow down there in where you're investing, and I'm sure the interstate helps to be able to move up and down to check on those properties because yeah, sometimes it's about staying close, but mostly like being accessible to your properties. So really interesting, and I hope big things for you this year. I think you got it under control, and if you don't do anything until you're 30 or 35 and you just stay retired, you'll still be good because you already locked in some great properties.
Thanks, Bryce. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. And I really appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great.
Yeah, no problem. And until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.